Greetings and welcome to Terra Incognita. This edition of 7-Minute Max looks at a few of 3ds Max's align tools. The align tool is another approach to positioning objects precisely, based more on the qualities of an object as opposed to its vertex locations. You could access the align operations from the Tools menu, and you'll notice a couple here, Spacing Tool and Clone and Align, that I'm not going to cover today. We'll cover those another time. But today I'm going to be covering what you could find on the main toolbar. If you hold down the left mouse button, you'll also get the extended align options, which we're also going to cover. So the basics of using the align tool: you select the object that you want to change position, and then you select the object whose properties you want to conform to. So you could either pick the align tool from the toolbar, or you could press Alt-A on the keyboard as a hotkey, and then select the target object. And now we see the align selection box come up with our options. We could choose whether we want to strictly align in the X, Y, Z position, or all three. Currently I have different properties selected for the current object and target object. If I put them pivot point to pivot point, they should line up exactly. But as we just saw, you could also select those distinct properties to do things like stack them on top of each other. It's not just X, Y, Z position we can use our align tool for. It's also orientation. Here I've rotated the target object slightly. So now as we look at the align orientation, I could select which axes I want to conform the rotation to, or indeed all three. The same applies to rotation. Now I could look at scaling along any of those distinct axes to match the scaling of the target object. It's probably obvious to mention this, but the target object must actually be scaled, not just a smaller version of the same object done with sub-object transformation. Now there's a caveat to using the align tool, which sometimes can give you unusual results if you don't know what's going on. Here I'm going to change the pivot of the object so that the Z-axis is aligned to what is usually the our Y-axis in our Cartesian system by default. And now let's look what happens when we perform our alignment operation. We see that the align position is happening relative to the world UCS. I'm going to uncheck these for now for clarity, since those actually cause it to move in some unusual ways. So now positioning our object happens according to the world UCS, the positions that we might expect, but we can also change the UCS the align tool is going to use to local. And now we can see the align operations are going to respect that local UCS, and it's also indicated in the align position. Now it works a little differently for rotation. Here I've again changed the local UCS where Z is pointing in the Y default direction. As I align to a slightly rotated object, the results are going to be a little unusual. You notice some movement going on even as I'm just performing rotation operations. And in this case it appears that the local X rotation relates to the other object's Z rotation well enough, so that's about the only one that's moving accurately. The same is true with scaling. Notice again my local UCS has Z pointing in the Y direction. Let's try setting our UCS to the world position, and now using the align tool to scale relative to an object with the default UCS. It's pretty clear along the Z axis. I can see that even though my world UCS is showing in the gizmo, the transformation is respecting the local axis, which has Z oriented in the Y direction. But that's all really just to say that if your align operation is behaving in a way that you don't expect, one thing to check is the relationship of the object's local UCS to the world UCS. But going back to objects whose UCSs do align, alignments are also very useful at the sub-object level. So here I want to align a face of my object to, let's say, my target's pivot point along the Y-axis. Maybe I actually want that object's maximum point so that I could align these two faces. At the sub-object level, you could even align a sub-object to the parent object itself. So I'll select my align tool and select the parent object, and now I could change the position of this vertex I've highlighted to any of the parent's properties. So I'll move it in the X direction to the parent's pivot point. Maybe I want that right in the center, so I'm going to move it in Z and Y as well. And you know, I didn't realize that that pivot point was actually in the corner, so instead I'm going to go to the center of the object, X, Y, and Z, and that looks a little better. In the last couple of minutes here, let's take a look at the other alignment tools. So Quick Align aligns two objects with their X, Y, and Z position, pivot point to pivot point, in a single operation. So the hotkey is Shift A, or we can use the pull down menu to go to the next, the align tool with a lightning symbol. We'll pick our object, and here we see that even though that object was scaled and rotated, we'll do it again here. Even though this object is scaled and rotated, Quick Align is just going to match the X, Y, and Z position, pivot point to pivot point. Normal Align, the next object, the next alignment mode in our list, I find very useful. Click on any face you want to align, and you'll see the blue normal indicator. And then actually normal and light and camera work a little bit differently. Hold down your left mouse button, and you could see the target preview as you drag the mouse around the scene for any face that your first face is going to align to. When you release the mouse button, the operation is engaged. And we even get a dialog with some offset information to really fine-tune how those faces are going to align together. Flipping the normal actually points them in the same direction instead of kissing, so that gives you even more utility for this tool. The next option, Place Highlight, is very useful. A lot of times you bring a light into a scene and it's in this position of being face down. Let's see if I could grab it. You could use the Place Highlight function. Again, hold down your left mouse button and you're going to see the normal indicator that's going to specify where the hotspot of that, which face the hotspot of that light is going to hit. Camera Align is much the same operation except with a camera. We'll go to Camera Align, and again I hold down my left mouse button to see the indicator of what exactly my camera should point to. Now when I go to that camera view, it has been quickly aligned to the object I wanted to focus on. Finally, Align Object allows us to work from our active view and specify how we want a specific object to line up to this view. So maybe this is most useful in orthographic as an example, and we want our object to align precisely to our arbitrary orthographic view here. With that, I think we could say Max gives you a broad tool set for various property-based alignment operations. Thank you and good day.